cursing.
No more cursing. All right.
I'm pretend I'm at work.
Hi, Seth.
What's up, Penn?
Not much. I'm waiting for y'all to finish this damn podcast so we can go fish.
Yeah, I figured that. I know when Rudy mentioned going fishing earlier, and I was like, uh-oh. I was like, I gotta get him before he goes fishing, and at least get him gone so he can go fish, because he's probably not gonna let that go.
I ain't too worried about it. I fish a lot. Let's talk about some hunting.
All right, happy off season, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Texas Public Podcast. I'm sitting here with Rudy. We're catching up on a Saturday afternoon. Rudy just got off work, and I actually had the house to myself for once. So, what's going on, dude?
Man, just hanging in there, trying to make it.
Yeah, I know we were just talking before we kind of kicked things off, and you can see I can hear it in both of our voices start getting excited every time we start talking a little hunting, little tracking, little scouting, and we got the message group going with some of the boys, and it's kind of easy to get fired up.
Very easy, and it doesn't help with y'all posting pictures and watching some antler growth and big fat does and looking like they're ready to pop and just all kinds of stuff going on right now. And I'm talking to you about tracking a minute ago. Just got me all fired up. I'm like, I just got to get out there. Poor pig.
Yeah, I know one of the guys shared a picture, and man, big old fat sagging belly doe, and I saw a big doe this morning, just belly just hanging so low. Looked like she was basically uncomfortable. So there's probably some fawns out there already on the ground somewhere, but if not, there will be here in the coming week. So, and I've been scouting out a couple of times here lately. Sometimes nothing major, but I just going to pick up a few cameras. I went over to the opposite side of town and picked one up that's been soaking in there for like almost 2.5 years. And man, I kind of remembered why I liked that area. I kind of scouted around. I posted a couple of shorts on there for some feeding areas, and that place got burned last year. So it was lush in there. Found quite a bit of signs. It seemed like the numbers in there were pretty good. So kind of had me fired up, and I wanted to. The camera wasn't in a good spot anymore. It was on a big water oak that fell last year in all those spring rains, so that was kind of out of commission. But I jumped a couple of does right off that spot when I went and pulled that camera, and man, it giving me the jitters.
Well, they're still there. I mean, they're still there. They may not be on that water oak, but they're around there, bedded around. It sounds like.
Yeah, that's that spot that you kind of gave me some intel on, or at least you confirmed something. You saw something in the area not too long ago last year or something. But it kind of gets some pressure, which tends to kind of run me off. But not a lot of bow season pressure, like usual. But I don't know, man.
I want to say I saw what I told you about. I don't remember if it was right at the end of bow or right at the end of season in general.
Nah, it was during bow season, I think, or at least the first of bow. Yeah, it was during bow only season. We hadn't made November yet, I think. So.
Yeah, and I think it was early because it was still real. Was it daylight or dark early? It was dark early. I can't remember.
Yeah.
It's been 2 years.
Yeah, but just another. I was going there planning on writing that spot off, and then when I kind of branched out on it a little bit, I was like, man, and it was just after a big rain, and what I actually liked about it was it makes a huge. It floods easy, and man, if sometimes you can play those flood waters too, and you can see where those flood lines are, But I was like, man, kind of makes me want to go out there when it dries up and walk out in those bottoms and maybe find like a high spot, and see if there's any buck sign on it or something, where they might be bedding up, when that spot stays real wet. I don't know, just kind of makes your mind run a little bit.
Absolutely. Probably I would imagine on a high spot, considering north winds.
Yeah, and it was a pretty vast bottomland area, which I've never had a ton of success in.
For the time frame you're saying, that'd be a lot of south winds. So.
Yep, it would. And where I was, you could approach it with a crosswind. You could approach it from the east. and I would expect, anything back in there to kind of come up. They wouldn't want to go south, let's just say that, but they might get up and come kind of to the northeast or come into that crosswind. But yeah, I don't know. Without getting too specific, man, look at us. We're just flying off the rails already. Just
right. That's pretty easy to do when we just start talking about little things we got going on the side.
Right. But no, when we were talking lately, and the topic kind of came up because I was talking to a few other guys about this as well. As we talk about a lot of springtime scouting and what you might want to do, and it's I think and I was this way as well, and you can probably relate. You probably everybody goes through that period where you get caught up like wanting to know what bucks are doing like all the time, like all year, which is always exciting by all means. If that's that's what you feel like spending some time on, by all means go ahead and do it. But this time of year, the bang for your buck, I don't know if it's all there, but especially for a newer hunter, man, I think it would probably help some people if they would just realize how important it is to focus on the does. I mean, what's
Absolutely.
your take on that?
Well, you're talking to somebody that for the first probably 5 years of his public land hunting was specifically trying to go off of buck-only sign and looking for bucks, on buck. When I realized those bucks at the time of year that I was hunting them was not the move. It was to really, stick with the does, right? So I think does are very important, not just for, just fill the freezer, but, to really tell you what's going on out there. And for a lot of reasons, right? I think that the most important thing is they're going to be what the boys are after when we're out there hunting. We're hunting them during their mating season, so what we call a rut. And pre-rut, the boys are getting frisky and starting to fight for areas where the girls are, and you come into the rut where it's full swing, and they're fighting for the girls, and they're running from big girl group to the next one and the next one, just trying to get it in where they fit in. They only got a few months to get it in, and I think we were all young, or some of us still are, and we know how that can be.
Yeah, Don't bring us into this. Let's not incriminate ourselves here.
Well, I mean, you're married. Look, and you got kids. See what happens.
Yeah, you get yourself in trouble real quick.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I think that the does are probably more important than anything. Food's important, water's important, knowing where the bedding area, but knowing your doe population, knowing when they're coming into the season, and that can play big dividends on what happens for you throughout the following season. And I think that's what we're really here to capitalize on, is how can we do that. And I think you should definitely tell everybody, I think the most important step, what we've been talking about previously and coming in, is to what do they mean by that? How can I do that? So
right. And I think the other thing to remember is just when you're tracking doe groups in general, does are a lot more predictable. They're going to have that sort of they're going to keep that
routine.
Same home range. They're going to stick in those groups, and they're going to stay in those areas. I don't think they shift with the same purpose.
Yeah, I think exactly what you said, and I guess in my own little words is they're predictable. They can get a routine. They're the one thing that I can pretty much get on my camera and see them either every day, or I can tell you, hey, I got this group coming in every 3 days at this time, between this time and this time. As long as you're in a tree on that day, you'll see them. And or maybe they're not just crossing right there those other 3 days, but that's when I know for sure, right? I can also tell you, hey, that doe was with this yearling coming in here, and now that yearling's by itself. That tells me that probably tells me, hey, man, they only usually kick that yearling whenever they're getting ready to get into cycle 2, But,
yeah, 100%. And doe bedding is I don't want to say it's easier to identify, but does will bed in a lot more. I don't even want to say vulnerable places, but they're just not looking well. Especially if we're kind of referencing that 3-year-old buck and bigger or older. They're not. They have security in numbers, right? He doesn't. He's usually betting based on them, maybe using them as an alert process, but they tend to bed, a lot closer to the food sources, a lot closer to, maybe even people in general. So, you can walk in kind of the first good thick transition you come to in a sea of monotonous, woods or cover. You can likely find some does. So, I think that's probably one of the biggest things that somebody new could take away to start focus on. It's easy to get excited, right, and get excited about the bucks and want to know what they're doing all the time, which I've certainly 100% been there, but it's also cost me a lot of hours, trying to keep up with the buck because it's just so hard, because you want to be where they want to be. But a lot of time when you're trying to be where he is, he's always a step ahead of you. But that step ahead is he's more and more routinely making those rounds in relation to those does. So if that timing is there, you'll be in the game. So
like a big part of that, just go back to what I said earlier. Those does are really very much on a routine, even if they're in heat. They're on that same routine. They may be. That doe, when she's an extra, she may be, 30 minutes behind the group that she's normally with, or 30 minutes ahead of that group. And one thing I can tell you is, and just looking at my cameras and my personal experiences of hunting, over my years, and ever since I was a little kid, and I've done a lot of deer watching because we couldn't afford to shoot those big high-fence deer, even though we got to go on those high-fence places and kill the pigs and stuff, right? So you can see them and how they act. And I think that when I catch that doe and she's in her cycle, that buck is going to be on that routine. And that's why I said that does are predictable. Like, I can tell you, unless there's pressure that changes that routine or something, or I'm coming in wrong or disturbing that routine, and that would be the only time. Like, I can see her coming in and then bam, there's a buck with her. And I'm like, oh, okay, then that's a shooter. I literally did it, right? You just turn around and you go and you're like, she's going to be over here in 2 days, 1 or 2 more days. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to hunt regardless. Because sometimes with that buck being on her, he may not be letting her go far. So she's using the same bedding area. So she'll go back to it and she'll hit the same feed area. And all he's doing is staying on her until her cycle's up to keep those other bucks off. He's going to breed her as many times as he can and go on to the next one.
Right. No, that's a good point too, and and we say all that to say we were talking about if you're for those of you who like to run trail cameras and you want to get out and scout this year, or this spring, this time right now, this April May time frame, a big key that we wanted to bring up, and we say all that to say, if you want it, people are talking about where they're putting cameras right now. Some of the hardcore guys are still running a ton of cameras. You want to get out and you want to see that new antler growth. You want to find some bucks, right? You maybe buck's got a specific feature. You're trying to find him, see if he survived. Where you're placing those cameras. All great questions, but I think it's really undervalued to not only once you find the doe groups, and maybe this is a couple of years into your experience, you take the camera intel now and you really start paying attention to that fawn drop. It sounds like, I think some people just default to say like, well, what am I really going to do with that? Can I really apply it? I understand it. I understand the possible challenge, but we're talking about something that you're looking to build history on. You're looking to confirm, and we're talking about this time of year. What can I focus on right now if I want to stay, with a mindset of what can I learn now if I have time to do it, and the fawn drop can be key on that, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So and today, like we were just talking, if you're listening to this, this is kind of the second week of May almost, and if you see a fawn on the ground now, just assume it's within the last 3 days. That doe with a 200-day gestation period, 198 days, not gonna split it. That doe was bred somewhere around October 20th to 22nd, which is fairly early for an actual bred doe. I mean, would you agree?
Oh, 100%. Those everybody's under the assumption that mid-November is when all the deer come in to estrus at the same time. Not true. Or they no, it may not be the same week. Not true. That's why we have a pre-rut, rut, and post-rut.
Yeah, and
knowing that early fawn drop is going to tell us what, Seth? What is it going to tell us?
That early fawn drop is going to tell you that doe possibly comes into estrus a little bit earlier than your typical doe group, right? When we're talking about pre-rut and bucks are active where they're cruising, checking these doe groups, but we're talking about the rut in October in a specific area, right? You're talking about this doe group lives right here in this 100-acre piece, and it's the rut around at October 20th for that group. And if there's no other does or within a specific range who are actually ready to breed, which is only in a couple of days, right? When they come into estrus, they've got some of them only stay in estrus for like 36 hours or less. If none of those other bucks have anywhere else to go breed, where are they all going to be? Every buck within 2 miles, right? They're probably going to be all over that doe group or that doe, if we're just being practical.
No, I've 100% have seen. I've seen it's kind of like, and this is a fact too. You can look this up. Maybe we need to get a fact checker for our podcast. But
we're always right.
I can't say that at all. But I grew up in a house full of women, and I was the only boy. And I can tell you that over time, if women are in the same household and they can, ovulate and have a menstrual cycle, then they can tend to fall in the same pattern of having that same cycle at the same time or within the same week. And it's very much the same with animals. I believe that does do come in early because I've seen it. And that's why when people say, when do you target your hunting? And that's why I've dropped that information on our previous podcast. It's because that time frame for me is I see it. I've seen does, leave their fawn and then bucks chasing them in the same camera within, 36, 24 hours, like you're saying. So I know that I've seen that, and I think with camera proof over and over and over, it's safe to say that not all the does are bred in the same day at the same full moon, the same first front in the first full moon. It doesn't work like that.
Right.
Everybody's different, and they do fall in different cycles, and they can be very early. But what I meant by what I was saying is, if you do have that early doe, and she leaves that group, there's a very high chance that the does that she was with wouldn't be long away from being ready to be in cycle, like even weeks, right? So.
Right. No. Yeah, I'm with you on that one, and it's and the tactic there is, because I know guys who are specifically rut hunters, especially some of the guys that I've met the last couple of years, and I mean we know some people who hunt our area that they don't really mess a whole lot with October, but they're big rut hunters, and over the years, and some of these guys even do this like across the state, especially a state like Texas, or like Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, where the rut's kind of extrapolated out, right? And they have that timed out on their calendar where it's kind of the same principle. This region, a couple of counties, their rut is like their prime breeding is within this 2-week period. And then if they move 150 miles south, they can go hunt a different rut when this one's on the downturn, and they can go a little bit further south or east and hunt, and all of a sudden they're back in the hot rut, right? We're talking about that same concept, but just on a smaller scale, because it does exist. It exists in the grand scheme of things, and it also exists in your woods that you hunt. Now, if you're hunting a 15-acre piece, 100-acre piece, yeah, it's maybe not the best thing to focus on, right? But what you still need to learn is when your does do come in, because if you miss that on a small piece, you're done, right?
Okay, so like just to go back a little bit, I'm just catching up with what I'm hearing. Like you said, people who chase the rut. Well, I do have a little bit of liberty with that, because if I really wanted to jump on an early rut, I could shoot up north up there towards Longview and Marshall. On my cousin's property, he's a cattle farmer, and he's a bucking bull farmer. I'm sorry, he's not really a cattle farmer, but he's got all those properties, and he's given me the green light to hunt them. And I've got setups out there, and I didn't hunt those places at all last year, just because it's such a bit of a drive for me when I can go a little bit south of that and get on some good deer over there too, right? But I know for a fact where I hunt over there, the rut picks up first before over here by the house. Mm-hmm. And then I also have those private properties that are right by my house, and it seems like, man, like end of November into December, I feel like over here in these open pastures where these deer live and these cattle, all out here, there's not a lot of trees, just the creek bottoms, So a lot of these deer travel the creeks, and they just have little areas where they can bed off in and stuff. And most of the farms that, open hayfields and stuff like that. But, dude, like I've noticed that these deer do not turn on like they do over here, like just right down the road where there's thick pines. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it is pretty cool when you kind of see that play out, because it definitely exists. And like you said, and even down here where I'm at, a little closer to the coast, a couple of permission spots that I
was just about to say that.
That
turned on way early in the year.
Yeah, it does. And you know what? And I hate to say this, but I'm guilty of like still trying to believe it's not the case, but honestly, I haven't hunted this close to the coast my entire life. I've never had places over here to hunt until just these last couple of years, but so I've never had a group to study, like other than just seeing dead deer on the road. But we're talking about trying to learn specific herds, at least specific properties, and every year. So I have two places to hunt now, at least down here by the coast, and it's like October 10th through the 20th. That's the best 10 days of the year. I see the biggest buck. He usually shows up once. I had the last 2 years in a row had two pictures of huge bucks. Like, you wouldn't believe they existed down here. They showed up once each in that same time frame. I think it was two different bucks both years, so I don't know what happened to the other one the first time, but he probably got poached.
Somebody found him and popped him.
Yeah,
right out the window of their car.
But after that, it's just normal deer activity, But those does over there, they're coming in those first couple of weeks of October, and the landowner even, and like I said, you have this mental block because we've been so conditioned for like the November rut, chasing November. There's all kinds of titles and magazines and books and channels and publications just geared towards the November rut, right? But it's like, man, it really programs you in the wrong way. It gives you tunnel vision. But even the landowner, like, I remember he told me, he's like, well, they're rut. Like, the first year I was there, he's like, it was like right first week of bow season. He's like, they'll be chasing back there here in a couple days. And I was like, yeah. I was like, well, but he lives there and he's telling me that, and I'm like, still like, oh, maybe he's just mistaken the activity.
No, because there's a guy, I don't dislike him, man, but he's very strong opinionated, and it's hard to hold a conversation with him a little bit for me, but he lives down on the coast and hunts a big property on the coast, and he's talking about like the first week of bow season, they're like already pretty much done with their rut.
Oh yeah,
down there. So
yeah, it's not long, and I know I've talked to you about it before, and I seem to do this every year. I hate to recreate the same content, but like every year on like the YouTube channel, I usually post a short. I go back to this same area, like middle of August, like especially, and I should say, actually one year it was August, it was late August, but like first 2 weeks of September, and there's already a trail of scrapes in there, and I've very, very extremely rarely I've found that in any other areas, but that's because that activity is kicking off, and those does in there come in early, and it's kind of that same time frame, that 10th, or it really shifts a few days even. Like last year I had it marked on my calendar. I was going to be there the 15th through the 18th, and I was there when I got a video of one of the bigger bucks in those woods that I knew existed. He was like 200 yards away walking past the camera, and I was in the woods. I just wasn't in the right spot. But like that, it's a peak of activity. Those doe, and then I get videos of. That's what's great about video mode too, right? When you can, does just flying back and forth, and the bucks are on them for like those couple of days, those 3 or 4 days, and then after that, it just kind of goes back to normal activity. And then a couple of does will come in like during the normal time, but I see those biggest deer in that time frame, and I'm just saying it's worth the effort. Not saying to throw all your eggs in the basket, but maybe go back in there, run some cameras, just check it when the season comes around, run some cameras, put your efforts into what you know is better, and then at the end of the season, look back at it, see if you were right, see if there's something there, because there likely is.
Well, really, the main thing, go back to what we were really talking about, is when you go back and look at those cameras, what you really need to be looking for is that first fawn that drops. And then that's when you know that real pre-rut is kicking off, right?
Yep, that's right. And you're going to see...
you can go back 200 days from when that baby was born, and that's going to tell you, hey, man, I need to be in the woods this week within this 3 to 4 day period.
Yeah.
If not all 3 to 4 days, and you're pretty sure you'll see a shooter buck chasing a doe in there.
Yep, and you're going to see that pre-rut activity even earlier, right? So you might capitalize on some of that in that same area. Not just the hard chasing, but you might be catch some bucks coming through, checking a scrape at 11 o'clock, or getting up, monitoring scrapes, when the does are cruising through those scrapes, But it's exactly what you said to your point earlier, and we kind of know this now. You can look it up. A lot of reputable folks that published it, Mississippi State and Bronson Strickland and all them, they've been pumping out all kinds of cool studies and stuff the last couple of years. But those does, the yearly estrus cycle is so consistent. It takes a lot, of stress and environmental stress to throw a doe off the cycle. So it's usually going to be within those same couple of days every year. Between that and the photo period is what kicks off that kind of the rut, right? But that estrus is the same for that doe every year, and she passes that on generationally to the offspring. Give or take a day or two, nobody really can say like for certain. It's not like an exact logic, but they have established that is a lot more consistent than what people thought, and then it's also generational. So
you got me over here. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut you off. Finish what you were going to say.
No, I just saying, like, so once you have that, once you've got confidence in what you found, you've got a long-term strategy in that area, right?
Absolutely. And I got a story, and I start trying to think about. We start talking about these things sometimes, and I start thinking about, hey, man, do I really have something that I can relate to and that I've experienced in my past that would be what I would call, this is a situation where it happened for me. And I have one. As a matter of fact, the year before I started filming, I found this bottom, great spot, private on 2 points, on 2 sides, It's got a real nice little stretch of public in between them. And I was like, let me go ahead and go scout this. And I found this area, and I hunted it pretty hard the first year in there. Pretty much not what you want to do, but I got the privilege of bow hunting that area that season real hard. And I got to see, I killed a spike. It was the coolest spike I ever shot because he had green eyes.
Cool.
And I never had killed a deer with green eyes, yeah. And I think I got a picture of him on my Instagram. But that was my first year. I got my Matthews, too. So then following year, I got my all my camera gear set up right. But I knew I had stayed out of that area for the most part. And I think I put in like one early hunt halfway back, and then I never went all the way down to the bottom. Saw a couple deer, didn't anything to shoot. And then I waited for a cold front. It was like the third week of October. We had a really good cool front hit. It was like 48 degrees, 50 degrees, somewhere in between maybe. But I got out there, and in that same thing, said they were chasing the doe. I could see them out in one of the pieces of private chasing the doe. And I don't know what happened. I remember filming in the video, you can see a little nubbin buck work the scrape or the rub. And then he takes off running because there was a little doe that went through first, and then he was behind her. And then those other 3 bucks were still chasing that doe out in the pasture. Well, something happened, and they all come running through. And I seen that bigger buck. I had been filming him. He was an 8-point, and I shot him. And that's when I met Mr. Gene, man, and Penny, the Strachan dog. Yeah, but that just goes to show if you can watch, because I put cameras in there, and I just happened to see that the first fawns that came through, and not that I knew then, but now I can relate. Now I know. Because I didn't know. But there's a lot of things I didn't know that, like the first buck bed I found, man, I thought I found like a scrape. It wasn't a scrape. There wasn't nothing. He had a licking branch in there, but he had a big old bed, and it was on the corner of a freshly cut logging area, like where it intersected, and then it went down into a tall grassy area, and that followed down to a creek. And he was bedded right there on the edge of that logged area, with his back to that, and I guess he was looking that way with his back to the creek, because that was his escape route, was down that bottom end of the creek. But there's a lot of things, like, just talking about it with you, and the knowledge that we gain over the years, and the people that we network with, and that and that I know, just you learn these things over time. You're like, oh man, that's what happened. A lot of times in the beginning, I got a buddy, Brandon, he's like probably one of the most non-hunting dudes I know. And I mean that. Like, he knows so much about hunting and getting out there and getting on, even, just trying to pattern deer and stuff like that, and what they do and natural tendencies and stuff. He taught me a lot of that stuff when I would talk about it. And he's like, well, yeah, because this, and this. And I'm like, huh. I didn't even think about that. Yeah. You know what I mean? But it all made sense, and it added up. And, just like you saying, hey, go back, and if you think about that first fawn drop, I mean, that's basically what I did. I knew that I can go back to around that time frame, before that baby was born, and maybe I'll catch them deer in there rutting again, and sure enough, because I didn't kill that doe back there. It's way too far to kill a doe.
Yeah, and just to simplify it a little bit and bring it into perspective, what we're talking about with kind of recognizing that fawn drop and what it can do for you and what it means. I mean, that's something we're doing all year and doing during the rut. We're trying to find those hot spots, right? We're trying to find those hot spots that are hard enough to find during November. Like, that's what we're looking for. Like, you're looking for the same thing, but what you're doing, excuse me, you're trying to find one of those spots in the same way, but you're just trying to look for that spot that it happens 2 weeks earlier, right? 3 weeks earlier. Like, yeah, they're not in every area, but that's something that can set you up for a lot better earlier season hunting. Of course, there's hunting bee trees, bed to food pattern, but we're just talking about I mean, you give me the option of hunting a feed tree situation, some sort of bed to food in the early season when it's hot, or hunting hot early estrus doe. I tell you where I'm going. I can be a lot more. I can be a lot more invasive and probably not have to worry about a whole lot if I think there's a hot doe in there. I just need to get in there. Versus, holy crap, I got to watch out everywhere I step. Who knows what's going on? So, just saying,
it don't matter when you got a hot doe.
It don't.
There's only one thing on his mind.
It don't matter, right? But we're just talking about doing that same thing, and it really came to mind. I was talking to a guy who's in Alabama, and we were talking about camera strategies in the spring and all that kind of stuff, and we were talking about how to get bucks on camera and all that kind of stuff. And he's like, "Man, I've been in the woods for 35 years," he said, "and I still do the same thing." He's seen every strategy.
The same thing.
He's seen every strategy there is, and he still says this time of year, the only thing he really cares about, he doesn't really care about what the bucks are doing. He wants to key in on the fawn drop, and he still pays attention to it after all this time. So I think somebody with that kind of experience can kind of vouch for that for you. Like, hey, this is a never-ending strategy you can keep working on. Especially this time of year. If you're like, man, what can I do this time of year to work towards next season, to work towards the next 5 seasons? That's one of the things you can do right now. Instead of sitting on the sidelines for 7 or 8 months, just kind of waiting and hoping, there's still little things that you can build on and you can notice. And it's just as simple. It might be just to be simple as going on a hike, and doesn't have to be running cameras. You can just go be on a walk, and you see a little spotted fawn, looks like he's about 4 days old, and you're like, I wonder what the date is. Just saying, don't disregard it, right?
Right. No, I'm with you on all that, 100%. And I think that you're inspiring me to get my butt out there and sweat some and go put some cameras in these doe bedding areas. I don't have anything running right now. I don't have anything going. I'm just going off of good old faithfuls and just what I found this last season. I feel like every year that I progressed, and learning the deer and when I need to be there, and I got you'll see me, me, Seth. I will go out there and just random hunt, like go pick a parking spot and be like, man, I'm gonna go in there and take a look. As I sneak in the morning, I find something hot, I'm setting up on it.
Yep.
I think you're right, though. I think I want to focus more on the fawn drop. I mean, and especially exploring new areas. And if you're getting into this and just starting, and you don't know where to start, and you're like, I want to go out there now. I mean, for one, pig hunting is year round, so you can sharpen up your skills doing that at the same time you're scouting and you're looking for those areas to set those cameras. Because once you're in there, you set the camera, you're out. And hopefully you got a cell phone camera, but if not, don't plan to go back in there until that time next year. Let it soak.
Yeah.
Or maybe let it soak for 8-9 months and then go in there and be like, man, all right, I need to be in here, this time of year next year. Give it time. You don't have to hunt it that season,
No, and that plays into exactly what we've talked about. I guess this is how I am. If I'm not trying to force myself to be something I'm not. But like when I'm out scouting right now, I've kind of come to terms with the fact that, especially if I'm checking out new areas in the springtime, some people might say it's low value, but the thing is I'm not looking for things to capitalize on probably this coming season. It means I found an interesting area. Kind of tells me maybe come back during season, check it, see if there's something good, set a camera, and let it run all year, then come back next spring, see what I found, see how hot it was. That's kind of been my process. And especially if I'm looking at newer areas, like if I'm just going in someplace new, and I'm taking notes of those kind of things, it's probably not something I'm going to go back to and hardcore hunt this year, right? Because I'm going to go, if it's not good enough to replace one of my top 3 or 4 spots, it's not going to, but I'm going to keep tabs on it, and see if I can verify some things. And I think that's what you can use some spring scouting for, is the longer term investment, right? You're always looking to see if you can replace one of your top spots with something else. you know.
That's right. And you got to keep adding to your arsenal because if you burn one spot, you got to go to the next. You got to have another plan. And what if somebody's there at your first spot, or you got to walk past somebody to get to a really good spot? You don't want them to know where you're at, so you got to go find another spot.
Yeah, and that's kind of the way it works for me these days. So, you know, I've been out scouting a couple times here lately, and that's kind of what it's been for me. That's kind of what I chalk it up to. And then even going back to my point, I'm trying to get permission to hunt a certain area, and it's an area that actually has a road through it, and I've been driving that road for the last couple of weeks. I may not get permission here or not. It's very, very unlikely. But I'm like, it's easy enough to pass through there, and I can drive through there, and it's not, you all kind of always see does. And I'm like, well, I'm going to just drive through there during these next couple of weeks and see what the does look like. See if they're ready to pop, see if there's already fawns. Because, you know, if I miss it, you know, it's...
What if you do get permission?
Don't do that to me, because I'm trying not to get excited, okay? It's probably not going to happen. This is just one of those way too long of a shots to... I don't think I could buy my way into there, but you never know. It only takes... It's so uncomfortable trying to do that, trying to do it. You know, I actually went to a guy's house several weeks ago, and it was bad timing because he was leaving, so I felt like he was in a rush. He said he had an appointment, so I'm basically hemming him up in his driveway, trying to talk to him, and I can tell he's like nodding his head, wanting me to kind of hurry, and it's just an immediate no. And I'm like, well, you know, listen, I try to go into a different type of spiel, and you know, and I try to make some points to him, and he kind of starts being a little bit more receptive to it, and he's like, you know, I don't need your money. And I was like, well, sir, I said, I don't have much money to give. I said, let's just be honest. I said, I'm not here offering you money. I said, I would be willing to do what I can if that would help. I said, but I'm willing to do some work for you. You know, I signed a contract, that way you can hold me accountable. I said, I just can't get away. You don't have a family and stuff. By the end of it, he was like, listen, he's like, if I was going, and he kind of gave me a salesman answer, I felt, and he was like, listen, if I was going to allow somebody to hunt there, I think it would be you. He's like, but I just can't. And I was like, so it was like giving me a compliment while also telling me no, which I felt like was a good way to let me down easy. But I picked up what he was putting down. It was still a no. You know. But yeah. So anyway, when started going way off the rabbit hole on that one. But yeah, it's just a unique spot. But you know, I've been rolling through there. I sent you a picture of a doe today with, dude, that she looks uncomfortable. She's so pregnant. So what did I do? I jumped on my phone. I went back 200 days, and we're looking at October 22nd. Now, granted, the deer's not on the fawn's not on the ground yet, but I'm just saying, if I can't do anything, that's just one little piece that will tell me something, at least get me excited, gives me something to do. I get to go see deer, I get to learn something, and who knows, that might be the one thing that, if I was to get permission, that gets me out there a week earlier than saying, well, I'm not going to go in there at all until November. That might be the one piece of information that says, you know, I did see that fawn.
Dude, we might have a piece, dude. I just need to make some money. Remember that property I was telling you about over there on, I think, Trinity or Huntsville area? Can't remember, but it was somewhere right in there. It was a farm. Like, it was like 100 acres or something like that. It backs up to the prison.
Bro, why are you dropping spots?
I'm just telling you. Hey, you remember that spot? I didn't say nothing. I did, didn't I? I said something important. But listen. That's a possibility this year.
Really?
That guy killed Armando over there last season.
No joke.
Yes, sir. I'm excited.
Man, come on. Well, you just told me you gained permission again on some other stuff. So listen, it sounds like you're starting to stretch yourself again.
Well, I talk about all these places that I'm able to go to, and that I'm able to do. And where do I end up getting my deer? And where do I end up love chasing them? I love chasing. I did kill that one 10-point, basically over the top of a feeder, but I didn't. He wouldn't eat. He didn't. He was running does. They weren't at the feeder. They never came to the feeder.
Well, I look at it this way. I justify it this way. A lot can happen between now and October 1st, right? You might lose one of those properties might get sold. Somebody might change their mind.
Man, why do you want me to have that?
No, I'm talking about for me.
Nothing but good things.
I'm talking about me. That's my perspective. Because my dad tells me all the time, you can't hunt all these places. I don't know why you trying to go over here, going over here. You can't hunt all them places, son. I'm like, yeah, Dad, but one of them or two of them could be ripped out from under me at any time, and then I'm back to square either 1, 2, or 3. So it's just like trying to have a good spot, you know.
I want to tell them like this, Dad. It's like having crappie holes. You don't just have one. Yeah, one may be on fire one day, but the other one may be on better fire the next day. You know? But hey, seriously, something I was thinking about that I did want to talk about, because we were talking about all these fawns and how we can, watch them, and if the earlier ones, how we can track back. But there's something we need to do about those fawns too, and that's protect them as best we can, in my opinion. And this is the best conservation you can do is go. I know some boys out there on the public land forums that intentionally go out and do some varmint hunting, and they get out there with their calls and they have a good time with it, and they put a smack down on the wildcats and the coyotes. And I think that's important, because if you want a good deer herd and a healthy deer herd and lots of deer, if you like seeing deer whenever you're hunting, the only way you're going to guarantee that is if you got a hot area with a good deer herd, or have a few deer, and then those does were probably bred. Go in there and help those babies out, and take out some of that coyote, because I promise you're not keeping up, but every little bit helps, So, in my opinion, I think we need to do that for sure.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. We're in prime predator season right now. It's springtime. Everything is birthing or hatching or being laid, right? It's like we probably don't do enough of that. Like, just as a hunting group, all of us. I know I don't. It's because the people are gonna say, well, the predator season, it's hot, and it's like, well, what are you really getting out of it? They don't see it as very sporting. But man, if you love and care about your wildlife, and their habitat, they already got enough stresses. There's some pretty crazy statistics around fawning. Some areas, especially in the South, have as low a survival rate as like 20% of their fawns. I think a high survival rate of fawning is like in the 60s. There's no guarantee. Like, we're talking about the wild, right? I know. Yeah, I've seen in the Midwest that the fawning rates. You would think like, well, why wouldn't they live at their birth? I would think it's like 80%. Like, no, like the best fawning rates in the country are like in the 60%, and the worst are like in the 20s and 30s. And that's kind of shocking when you think about it. So yeah, if you can find time to get out there, do some trapping, learn to do some trapping, especially for coyotes, bobcats, hard to catch up with, of course, right? But no, that's certainly worth it, and you can do it. I mean, that is right now, because those little babies are about to hit the dirt, and they're going to be absolutely the most vulnerable. And you can't kill everything, right? Like you said, but you might be able to give them a head start, before another pack moves in, something like that, because it is a real threat.
Well, I think for something that, for me, like, I've never been a big, like, go out there, but it's fun. I'll be honest, man. Coyote hunting, it's fast paced. If you're not trapping, or, you're trying to put it on the hunt or whatever, bringing the little one and giving them a rabbit squeal call, because, I mean, it's just got to sound like it's dying. They can do any kind of noise on it,
Yep.
They'll come running out there eventually. So it's fun. The kids can get involved. It gives them something to do. Gives you practice with shooting. Because, Lord, y'all don't need to be calling me out there. Come on now.
Now, come on, now you're cutting into your job security. And you're preaching. You know.
Hey, I always tell people, I hope you never need me, man. But if you do, I'm here. So I pray that everybody shoots straight and their deer drop right where they are, and they don't have to worry about tracking them or none of that.
Yeah, and it's you're never going to cure that. There's too much stuff going on. But
man, what do you think about my tracking stories, man? You like them?
I love all the tracking stories.
I need to do better at writing them because I got some good stuff that I could be putting in there. But I've got so many little stories and stuff, and not all of them are recoveries, but they're fun and just things that I just thought I'd never endure, or my dogs would ever endure. That's pretty cool stuff.
You know what we ought to do is we should pick a couple of your stories. One, of course, start with one, and if you have some good pictures, you got the good recovery pictures, you got some good in the field pictures, we can catch some still shots or something. We ought to do an article on it, like together, and then submit that to Texas Trophy Hunters and see if I bet nobody's really writing about that kind of stuff.
I think we should do yours since it won. First of all, it won an award, and I think that story is amazing because it is going to be a story that I write about for sure.
Yeah. That would be a good one. I wonder if they would remember because I wrote that one, and they did publish that one, but it was just more focused on the hunt. But man, we could change up some of those pictures and do it like a recovery story, and I guarantee you there's no articles out there like that. But those are the best stories, right?
Man, you got to think about it. For me, it's not just a deer recovery. I mean, I've met one of my best friends. I've put something that I thought that, I got laughed at or whatever, because I like filming my hunts and, just telling my story. And I thought that I'm a storyteller, I love it. And I like being able to share when I was a little kid, when my dad would go on a hunt and he'd come back with a cooler full of deer. And I'm like, I want to know the story. And he'd be like, huh? Tell me your story. What happened? What was it now? When the deer, I don't know what they came out. What did they do? Did you shoot it? What did you do when you shot it or go? You know what I mean? So I think that's just been a part of me, and meeting you, and you do the same thing. I think you're a lot better at it than I am as far as the camera thing, but we both understand, and we both have our own way of telling our own story. So, and I enjoy it, and I'm a part of something new. I've got this whole new thing, and here we are. What is it? 3 years later, 3 years later. It's crazy.
Man, I was sifting through some old footage and some old videos, trying to get a couple of clips for a new video. I'm working on, and I was saw how old some of my videos were, and I was like, holy crap! I'm like an old man on YouTube. First of all, I started late, but then I was like, that's just I don't really care because
I don't think it's dumb though, man. I think
listen, I have a little cousin. I have a little cousin. His name is Hudson, and he's 7, and he watches every video and every hunt we put out. And my cousins, who are his parents, they're like, well, we watched your video last night. We had to sit down. Hudson made us watch it, and I see him, and he's like, Seth, I watched your video. I told him, Hudson, I will always make videos from now on, if only just for you. It's he gets such a big kick out of it, man. And but it's really just fun to tell a story. Like you said, it's something that never gets old. And it's funny what you mentioned is I love to hear everybody's stories. It doesn't have to be a national forest story or a public land out of state story. When somebody shoots a deer at their lease in South Texas, and they're like, yeah, dude, look what I got this weekend. I'm like, oh, sweet. What happened? He was like, well, he just came in. He came in. He came into the feeder. I'm like, okay. I'm like, have you seen him before? Did you have pictures of him? Was he chasing a doe? Did he get inside the pen, or was he circling it, or was he? Did he kind of look? Do you think he knew you were there? Which side of the pen did he come on? which way was the wind blowing? Like, what are you feeding? Like, I want to know what you're feeding. Like, I want to know everything. Like, the story's the story, man, and I love it. And, like, I hate when people discount their own experience, because I love all of it. I love everything about it. Every experience is different no matter where it comes from.
There too, people on them South Texas high fence ranches and stuff, like where they've got those 200+ inch deer, like they've got history. They've watched those deer get that big. They waited for those deer to get that big or bigger, right? And I think what people misunderstand too is like they think all these high fence deer are pin bred and then released in there. That's not true either. A lot of those high fence deer ranches that are like 7,000, 6,000 acres, they're just standard genetics in a high fence. They let them breed and they culled outright, and they let the good genetics breed and get older. And they know that at a good deer at between 6 and 7, 8 years old, that's like their peak up there. That's where they get their biggest bodies, their biggest and heaviest racks. And you'd be surprised what genetics are out there in South Texas, man.
Yeah.
Especially there's some freaking giants out there.
Yeah. Oh, it's insane. Like I said, and I got a couple of buddies that hunt down there, and I text them just as often as I text anybody else when, like, hey, did you see anything this morning? Like, yeah, I saw 4 bucks, I saw 6 does, because usually their hunt's a hell of a lot more.
Tricked me with that big old buck picture, and I was like, no, you did. I'd say, damn, this thing is huge, dude. Well, I got a friend, Mike Sanchez, and he's like what I would call one of the kings of the South because he's got a lot of deer over 200 inches, and he watched them all grow, and he's got a lot of really good bucks, man, in magazines, and he's a really good hunter. Like, he likes rattling and, things like that, but he knows how to do a really good whitetail management program. He's a whitetail management manager, right? At these big juices. He runs like 5 or 6 high fences, just big high acreage and stuff. So, but definitely, got to get that guy on because you want to talk about some stories. He's got some, and he's got the pictures and the full body mounts and stuff in his house to prove it. It'd be a good place to go get a good story.
Yeah, yeah. Sure. Yeah, dude, those guys, don't underestimate them. They got a lot of whitetail knowledge, They know a lot about deer biology and timing and how those deer behave, man. It's really cool. That's it's a whole different world, but it's a lot of value there too. So Texas is definitely at the forefront when it comes to that. I hear guys talk about it all the time. A lot of the deer research was originated, even back in the 80s, started in South Texas, and they've had a lot of influence over the whole industry for a lot of years, Like those the Mississippi State guys, the one who they've been posting a lot. They had the Deer Hunter podcast, Bronson Strickland, and then they share a lot of stuff here lately. Both of them, they started their careers doing deer research in South Texas. Like, really? That's the only place that used to research deer once upon a time,
That's crazy.
So,
dude, but the South Texas deer over there are just a whole different animal than the ones over here in East Texas. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, that's the way they are. They've been managing those things.
You were talking about, just Texas and the state in different ruts. I'm like, dude, people don't realize how big Texas really is, though. Like, you can spend a whole day driving and still be in Texas, man. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Well, we went sideways for a little while there, but I don't think it was too bad. I think we still stayed on Deer Point at least. So, but I think we're about ready to wrap it up, dude. We'll let you go so you can go do a little fishing on your night off. It's we don't have to work tomorrow, so we'll see how tomorrow goes. And any closing thoughts on anything?
Oh man. Oh yes, I do. Real quick, guys, there is a free hunter's education. I want to say just go check out PT Outdoors on Facebook, and it's here within the next week from when this comes out. So get on there, get it registered. It doesn't have to be just the kids, but the kids, for the first, I want to say a certain amount of kids that register, they get a free hunter's package, and it's sponsored by Safari Outdoors, and of course people who donate to the PT Outdoor Foundation, who does the hunter's education. So PT's a good dude, guys.
We lost Rudy there for a second, but yeah, you were saying he does a lot. He does a lot for the industry. Good dude.
He really does for the youth. You know, he puts on the youth hunts. Which is also another really good connection that you can get to figure out how to get your children set up for youth hunt program, what it takes and what they need. But most importantly, it's a free hunter's education course. These guys are doing everything they can to get the kids in there and get them educated and gun and bow ready and safety ready out there in the field. So if you're looking for it, be sure to go look at PT Outdoors, and appreciate you guys for listening. Until next time on my end.
Yep, no, good point, dude. Thanks for bringing that up. That's definitely a big benefit. All these youth hunters definitely need to run that course. So appreciate everybody listening, and thanks for tuning in. Check out some videos we got dropping pretty soon. Don't forget Rudy, Texas Coastal Recovery. When the time comes, he'll find anything. He can fix anything from a broken heart to a broken smile, maybe. All right, man. Appreciate everybody listening. Texas Public Podcast. We'll see you back here on the next episode.